Today, we really need to talk about Valve's brand new Steam machine, because overnight, the internet kind of exploded and actually decided that Xbox suddenly has a brand new competitor. Valve dropped a brand new huge announcement, revealed a console-like PC that's heading to living rooms in early 2026, and instantly a lot of people out there started calling it a Series X killer, of course. But as usual, things really aren't that simple. A lot of what's being said online is based on a lot of hype, assumptions, and also fear. So in this video, what I wanted to do was kind of break down what the Steam machine really is, how it stacks up against that Xbox ecosystem, and whether Xbox actually has anything to be really worried about here. With that though, my name is Fletcher and this is Xbox Nation. If you're new here or just returning, I cover Xbox news, reviews and updates every single day, so make sure to subscribe down below. Now with that, let's dive right into it. So let's just start with the real basics. The Steam machine is essentially a supercharged home console version of the Steam Deck itself. Valve insists that this one is not a console though, and that is just a PC that's designed for the living room. But let's be honest, if it sits on your TV, uses a controller, has a fixed spec and boots directly into a gaming interface, it's essentially a console in everything but its name. The hardware design is quite minimalist and compact, almost like a shorter and slimmer Xbox Series X, and to be honest, I actually quite love it. Valve claims though that it's more than 6 times more powerful than the Steam Deck currently, and early impressions from Digital Foundry themselves suggest that the performance lands anywhere between the Xbox Series S and the PlayStation 5. That is a solid mid-range performance for a living room device. However, it does kind of go into a sort of element as to whether that could be underpowered in the near future. Here's the simplified breakdown though of what's inside, especially if you're not a tech head like me. The Steam machine uses an AMD Zen 4 CPU that can be clocked up to 4.8 GHz, and that's paired with an RDA3 GPU that supports, I believe, about 28 compute units. It does come with 16GB of DDR5 RAM and 8GB of VRAM, which is certainly one of the more controversial choices about it. For storage, you can also pick either a 512GB or 2TB M.2 drive, and the device actually supports DisplayPort and HDMI with resolutions which are saying about 4K 240Hz or 8K 120Hz, depending on, of course, your setup. Compared to Xbox though, it currently fits in a sort of really interesting place, I do have to say. The Series S is still weaker for sure, especially in GPU performance, while the Series X still remains far more powerful, as that's basically because it's got double the VRAM. So the Steam machine sits right in the middle, so stronger than the Series S, but weaker than the Xbox Series X, and that's where the comparisons get pretty interesting. So why does everyone suddenly think that Xbox should be scared about this? Well, for one big reason, it's certainly the timing. For months we've been hearing so many rumors out there that the next Xbox could include full Windows functionality, possibly even allowing all of us to install Steam on that device. That would honestly be a massive selling point, but now Valve is entering that sort of living room PC space first, and people think that steals Xbox's thunder in the near future. Another factor is Steam's of course massive library, everything from Steam sales, decades of PC games and tons of indies. There is an overwhelming amount of content that will be already available once it launches, and if Valve really does manage to price this thing around the $400 mark, which is being rumored at, it then definitely becomes very competitive with the likes of the Series S. People do see that though and assume that Xbox is losing a lot of its value and losing users, and I do see the point there. Social media though does love a console war, so the narrative has basically become Steam machine destroys the Xbox. But then again, once you take a closer look at it and delve a bit deeper, things get way more complicated. Here's the reality though that Xbox fans should certainly understand, just like me. First, the Steam machine runs on Linux, not Windows, and whilst Valve's Proton compatibility layer is certainly impressive, it's still not perfect. Some games don't work, some will require tweaks, and some do perform worse than expected. Casual console players aren't interested in tinkering or fixing things, especially from what I've seen, and they do want a plug and play simplicity that you get right out the gate with the Xbox consoles. Linux still does struggle with that, and I think that's where a varied standpoint will come in. Second, Xbox is no longer just a hardware business. Of course, as we've seen over the year, Microsoft has really shifted towards a platform-first approach. They're on PC, they're on Steam, they're on handhelds like the ROG Ally, they're even on cloud, and they're also publishing games on other consoles. Phil Spencer even came out and congratulated Valve publicly and emphasized that Xbox welcomes more ways for people to play their games. Xbox doesn't lose when someone buys a PC, they still win because of course they're still getting that revenue. It's just very different for the Xbox consumer. Third, the Steam machine doesn't have the Xbox exclusives, and although that sentiment is certainly changing as the years go on, you still can't get in a majority of the Halo, Gears, Fable, Forza natively, which is where the sort of platform war definitely comes into play. Some games will of course come to Steam eventually, but not all of them, and certainly not day one like Xbox Game Pass currently provides. Microsoft's ecosystem advantage is rather enormous here, especially on the Windows front, so it will be interesting to see how it shapes out in the near future. Then again, I love that more people can really play Xbox games, so I'm really on the fence about the whole exclusivity argument as a whole, but I'd be keen to hear your thoughts in the comments below about that. Finally though, the biggest long-term concern obviously with the Steam machine at the moment is that 8GB of VRAM, and this is something that Digital Foundry has highlighted in their video as a major limitation. Modern AAA games are already pushing far beyond that amount as we've seen so far, so stuff like Starfield, The Last of Us Part 1, Hogwarts Legacy, and even Indiana Jones and the Great Circle regularly exceed that 8GB even on PC hardware, and when they do, performance really does start to suffer. You start seeing stuff like stutters, texture popping, aggressive resolution drops, and in some cases the game simply reduces the settings automatically, and that's essentially to keep the game stable. I've seen it on my laptop which has 8GB of VRAM, and it certainly becomes worrying. It's especially worrying though concerning that the Steam Deck launches next year and not today. VRAM requirements are increasing year on year, and developers really aren't scaling back due to optimization. Even the PS5 and Xbox Series X, which both ship with 16GB of unified memory, are hitting memory walls in certain games off the top of my head. So launching a very fixed spec system with only 8GB of VRAM means that Steam basically may age quite quickly, really relying on upscaling like FSR, which does make things blurry, and again does struggle to meet its advertised 4K performance targets that they've stated long term. I think here's something though that most people really aren't talking about. The Steam machine actually might pose a bigger threat to someone like PlayStation and Nintendo than it does to Xbox. Sony at the moment are heavily invested in the hardware, as many of you may be aware. Their business model depends solely on selling consoles and keeping players within that PlayStation ecosystem. They don't really release games day one on PC yet, even though they do look to be working on a PC storefront which is yet to be announced, and they rarely support other storefronts as well. Of course, they only just released Helldivers 2 on Xbox this year to some great success, and they have only just released Lego Horizon on the Switch as well, so they're slowly getting there. It's just going to take a lot of time. It's quite easy to point out that they also don't have the cloud distribution at Xbox's scale, due to Azure of course, and Microsoft does have a wealth of data centers at their disposal if they want to use it. That is one area where Xbox does currently have an advantage, and I'll be keen to see how that plays out in the future. Xbox, on the other hand, already treats PC as part of their core experience, and they have done for quite some time. They benefit when the PC market grows, and they already know the amount of users across the board who log into something like Steam every single day. They benefit when more players shift to open platforms, and you see this massively when it comes to launching games day one on Steam, and the fact that we've also seen way more PC Game Pass exclusive titles being launched into that service over the past couple of years. Valve is basically validating that exact strategy that Microsoft has basically been pushing towards for years at this point, and that sentiment again was echoed by Phil Spencer himself when he did congratulate them. So what does this all mean for Xbox's next generation console? Well, a few possibilities do really stand out to me. The first is that Xbox may double down on the Windows integration rumors. So if Xbox lets players use Windows, access Steam and play PC and Xbox games all on one device like we've seen with the handheld, the next Xbox instantly becomes the most flexible gaming machine we've ever seen. Another option is that Xbox could keep that walled garden model but focus harder on exclusives. That's alongside their Game Pass value and performance advantages that they will have over this brand new Steam machine. In that scenario, that Steam box basically becomes another mid-range competitor and not a direct threat like many people expect. Then we have the third possibility, and that's that Xbox leans harder into services like Game Pass everywhere, Xbox games on every platform, and so much more. In that future, Microsoft isn't competing with Valve. They're partnering indirectly because both companies push open platform agnostic gaming, which is great to see. I feel like personally the third approach is probably what Xbox is going for, as more options for consumers is always a massive benefit and a big win for the consumer. So, is the Steam machine the next big Xbox competitor that everyone is hyping up online? And honestly, no it's not. It's an exciting device for sure. It certainly looks great. It will absolutely appeal, of course, to PC gamers and loads of tech enthusiasts out there just like me. It could really shake up the console pricing and push innovation, but it doesn't undermine Xbox's strategy as a whole at the moment. If anything, it already reinforces the direction that Microsoft has already been heading in. Xbox is no longer defined by hardware as we've seen over the year. Valve is now entering the living room, and it doesn't kill Xbox. It just gives gamers another way to play, and Xbox wins when the gaming world becomes way more open. But I'd be curious to know, what do you think? Is the Steam machine a real threat to Xbox? Is it overhyped, or is it exactly the competition that the industry needs right now in 2025 and into 2026? Do let me know in the comments below. Remember as well to do like this video if you did enjoy it, and subscribe for more Xbox news, reviews, updates, and everything else within the Xbox ecosystem here on the channel. Whilst here though, and if you do want to check out another awesome bit of Xbox content, I recently covered the huge Xbox sales which are going on in the store right now. There's a lot of games that you definitely need to pick up for some bargain price points.